just been knocking around in California cannabis since 2018. My first job was with a company called Moxie, who are a concentrate and vape company that were operating in 4 states. One of the co-founders used to work for me in advertising, so I ended up following him into the business in 2018. I'd been smoking my whole life, but I never really understood where I would fit in the industry. So it was like we sat down in 2018. It was right after it went rec. We talked for like 4 hours. Billy Maddox used to be at Moxie, and at the end of that conversation, I saw where it was going. It's like, oh, this can be a CPG business. They're going to need people who can create brands and connect brands and culture and tell stories. And so at that moment, I made that decision. I shut down my agency. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go spend the rest of my career, or at least the next chapter of my career, in cannabis, and specifically building rec brands. And so, I did it. I was at Moxie for a couple of years. Then I went and consulted on a bunch of small brands. And I went to High Season, got to create High Season and Gratitude. And that was the first time we really controlled supply chain. We had my own cultivation, or the company did, and learned so much through that. And then, I wasn't looking for a job, but Glass House came calling. And that was like an opportunity to go to the big leagues, really. Like, it's as close to the NFL as you're going to get, to go run, a house of brands with a big publicly traded company and be responsible for storytelling, not just for CPG, but like I make the investor videos too. So like a lot of, pretty much all the storytelling, like that, a lot of that came through marketing. So it's just like the cool thing about cannabis was it was just a place to take everything I've learned from 20 years of marketing and music and in advertising, and then go apply it like within a product company. And it's been a blast. Like I've done a lot of cool things in my life, but like my cannabis experience is, something I treasure the most.
So you believe that marketing shouldn't be viewed solely as the creative department? And if marketing is actually the connective tissue of a company, what does that look like in practice inside a cannabis business, pretty much?
Yeah, my whole philosophy on marketing is that marketing is really everything. Everything is a marketing, everything from your product, all the 5 P's of marketing: the product, the price, where we sell it, distribution strategy, promotion, storytelling, and people. People is a huge part of marketing, or a huge part of business. And marketing's job is to create the stories, the energy, the tools, the events, everything you need for that business to run well. So it's what that looks like in practice. We could, look specifically at Glass House. I'm coming off of 3 years where I ran marketing at Glass House, which is, one of the biggest publicly traded companies in the business. And our business was a lot bigger than brand. So, if you think about the whole organization, it wasn't just marketing for the narrow version of just CPG brands. I'm looking at an organization where the business is dependent on the farm doing well. The farm's the biggest piece of the business. And then we have the house of brands, Glass House, All Is Well Plus, Mama Sue, Reform, and we had retail. So we're completely vertically integrated, and we supported the retail marketing as well. So, what that looks like is a small team that partners throughout the entire organization to move the business forward. So, as the vice president of marketing, I sit in the leadership, or I sat in the leadership team with head of sales, revenue, retail, data, all of the VPs and SVPs who really run the business. And, everything from marketing strategy to product and portfolio strategy. There's a lot of things that happen before, what people think is marketing, which is taking it out to market. Before you can do that, you really have to understand your business, what you're trying to do, and develop a strategy that supports that.
Got it. That's actually, I love that, because now what I'm trying to understand is, like, you share this situation or your view of marketing as what it is. And now I'm thinking, because you gave this picture of, like, I'm sitting in a room with, a bunch of these people. How does Josh prioritize who's he going to pull first, whose notes he's going to take in? What are the priorities of the company? How do you specifically prioritize when you think through marketing perspective?
Yeah, well, I guess it's really understanding what the business is. Where does the revenue come from? What's in this business, like a lot of the revenue came from cultivation. So the we're not spending money to market to cultivation, but we're certainly creating training materials and teaching people and partnering with the farm and HR to do that. The goals for the CPG and retail is understanding that. And also helping connect the dots. If we have the biggest farm in the world, we should also have the biggest flower portfolio in the world. So that was, part of what we built, which is making sure we got the right products at the right price. Portfolio strategy, a big part of marketing too. In my strengths from 20 years of marketing before I got to cannabis, and a lot of operational experience in cannabis. A lot of it is figuring out what's absolutely necessary. Like, what should we be spending money on? What do we prioritize? And I always like to, start from, never take a big budget and break it out. I always budget from zero. So you start at the beginning, figuring out, like, let's look at the product, right? Like, do we have the right product? A lot of what I did was I did rebrand Glass House and Allswell. Actually, really changed the look of all of the brands. Fixed a lot of things in the product. Allswell's the #1 selling flower brand in California. It became that during my tenure there. When I got there, it didn't look like it does now, and all of the relevant product information that customers and bud tenders needed was on the back of the package. So it would be merchandised upside down. So that's just like an easy one. It's like, oh, okay, we need to go redesign this, put everything that the customer wants on the front, maybe give it a look. And when you see Allswell now, it's got beautiful blue color. You walk into dispensaries, it's just, just punches you in the face. And before, it didn't look, I cringed when I saw it earlier. It was just like weird primary colors, and, everything the customer wanted was on the wrong side. So, what do you prioritize? It really comes down, to revenue goals, sales and marketing working together to try to figure out, okay, what do we got to do this quarter? Where are we going this year? And what do we got to do this quarter to get there? And, a lot of it is rationalization. Like, we don't have to do everything. We don't have to be #1 in everything. In the first 6 months, we did a lot of portfolio rationalization, killed brands off, and really tightened our focus to go win where it made sense to win.
You did mention when you start working, you start off with like the easy budget or almost no budget. So a lot of operators see marketing as an expense, let's say. What metrics does marketing need to own before leadership starts viewing it as a revenue driver instead of a cost center?
Well, I think that, marketing should share a bunch of metrics with sales, especially in CPG. I think distribution and velocity should be shared, sales and marketing, because then you're building a marketing strategy to go attack the problem. Awareness, well, think about it like this. In a rec market like California, you got maybe 1,000 stores, right? So there's only 1,000 customers. They're not all people that you want to sell to. So if you're going to build a brand, your #1 thing is, okay, who are we going to sell to? Like, what shelves are, who do we want to build partnerships with? Who can pay their bills? Where can we build relationships and drive velocity? So if I'm building marketing based, I'm going to go throw this great party and we're going to go get this influencer and that, if that doesn't actually bring somebody to one of those stores that your product is actually in, it's for your ego. So, like, I don't market out of ego. I market out of how do we solve the problem. If we're trying to be, if the goal is to have the #1 flower portfolio in California, it's, do we have the right products? Are they priced properly? Do bud tenders understand the story enough to tell them? Do we make it easy for consumers? And then, ruthless trade marketing. So, I think in cannabis, we don't have big budgets. Even a big company like Glass House, I spent, a fraction of what my predecessors did, because a lot of it was waste. If we look, there was a lot of wasted money spent on things that don't actually move the business.
Can you be more specific? And again, I understand if there's not really room for that. But when you say waste, give me an example. Can you give me an example?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of places that cannabis companies waste money. outsourcing creativity. So you got to ask somebody else to, what is my brand? What should we be? You're in the wrong game. So I'd rather invest in people rather than outsource creativity. I want to have a strong team and be able to do that. So doing as much in-house as possible. You want to outsource certain things that you don't have strengths in. Like I would outsource, accounting or like things like that, but I wouldn't outsource like the essence of my brand. So it's that. Also, a lot of people waste money in packaging. There's tons of waste in custom packaging, extra touch points that add, your cogs in a product won't make sense if you're overspending because you got to have this QR code, and maybe that QR code costs you 12 cents by the time you're done. And if it doesn't add that value to the consumer, then it's a waste. So a lot of it's just rationalization, getting rid of things that don't make sense, figuring out what the consumer actually wants, and focusing on that. I would say the only channel that you really like, if you have to spend money, if I was going to spend money in a single channel, it'd be trade marketing, and that's it. I wouldn't worry about events. I wouldn't, I'd make content in-house for free. And I would focus and trade because that's the money that's going to actually market as close to the consumer as possible and move product that way.
Let me quickly get back to the conversation about the packaging because this is interesting to me. So how does a brand stand out with not so much personalized packaging, but or how do I say that? You don't have to go that extra personalized packaging system that's more expensive, as you said, as a waste. How do you stand out from a creative perspective, let's say, by not really going that extra mile in terms of spending money for packaging, but making it really, stand out and get it tracked? Okay.
Do this. So, I mean, this is obviously oversized. The real bag is not this big, but the whole idea with Glasshouse was jars are expensive, and so when I got there, we weren't selling big flour in everything was in a jar. So moving to Mylar bags, which are more cost effective than a jar anyway. Especially in flour, like the customers that we care about the most are the high volume customers. It's the packaging's a waste item. So, if I smoke an eighth a day, I don't need 300 jars. Like, what do I do with 300 jars at the end of the year? It's a waste. So, we started moving everything into, lesser expensive packaging. And, I take a bag home now, I rip the top off and I pour it into my mason jar. I just keep reusing mason jars, right? So investing in a jar for every eighth to me is kind of silly, especially on with price compression on the lower end. But in terms of how do you stand out on the shelf, like when I redesigned, Glasshouse didn't always look like this. Black package before, but the thesis of Glasshouse is that, and the thesis is that the world wants California cannabis. Right? Not just Glasshouse, but everywhere. And so that's why I went to this company. We were going to be the biggest grower. And I was like, well, the game I was playing for, I didn't see Schedule 3 happening the way it did. I was hoping that we'd get to, descheduling and that we'd be treated more like alcohol. So when I designed this, I'm thinking of like, if I'm going to walk into a 7-Eleven in Omaha, and want weed, I don't think the question is going to be indoor, outdoor, greenhouse. It's going to be California or not California. So, when we did this, it was, let's just own the California positioning. Award-winning California cannabis flower. So I think you do it you don't need to spend, it's not expensive packaging. It's just it's a Mylar bag, just smart branding. That didn't have a strain sticker on it, but all of the information that the customer wants is on the label on the front of the bag. That's a marketing function. We designed the label to give you everything you want. So I'll put flavor notes on there, dominant terpenes, in addition to everything that's required to be on there. And in past brands, the brand I was at before Glasshouse, I was putting harvest dates on the package. and I created a system. I got rid of indica sativa hybrid altogether, and created. I had a brand called High Season, and I built the product portfolio around flavor profiles. So I just took, we're growing a lot of, all the cookies and cake strains were in one colorway. All my purple weed was in a colorway. OGs and gas strains were in a colorway. So that was an easy way for people to understand, oh, okay, I like these type of strains.
Another thing that you did mention, which is extremely important, because obviously headquarters does outsourcing with a bunch of different business options, whether that's like accounting or AR or whatever. But what I also wanted to touch on as well, which is like, besides outsourcing, we obviously now do have a lot of AI, and everyone is talking about AI, automation and data. Yet you said stories and people matter more than ever. Why do you think brand trust is becoming more valuable, not less, in an AI-driven world?
Well, I just think that in an AI-driven world, you can already see it. Like, AI is making everything look really homogenic. Like, everything's the same. Especially people use AI for generative things. Like, if I flip through my Instagram feed right now, ChatGPT, you can tell. And I think people already like tune that out. Like, I wouldn't take Nike seriously if I was like, oh yeah, that was Claude Design and you built it in HTML. How do I use AI? I use AI to clarify my own thinking and to communicate better. So a lot of it is just I can create a stronger brief through AI, because I can go work through all the problems, and then by the time I finish it, I can go hand a collaborator something that's crystal clear. Like, here's what I want you to do, because I've already beat it to death, with my AI for 30 minutes. Especially when you have to massage something to really get what you want with AI, and I can work that out with AI before it gets too human, because a human can't take that level of criticism, or you know what I mean. Or like, if I want to iterate 100 times, I will burn a human being out, and I can do that with the machine, get it here, and like, okay, here's the demo. This is what we're building. So I don't know. I'm able to get things to, places where it's easier for people to understand what we want, and keep things organized.
Going back to, obviously, huge experience that you have, and not just the quantity of the experience, but also the quality of the experience. If you were stepping into a cannabis company today, as a chief marketing officer, what's the biggest marketing mistake you'd fix in the first 90 days? And I'd like you to give me concretes. Like, what is, based on your experience, what you saw, you step in, what are the first things that you do?
First 90 days at a cannabis company, in the first 30, you just immerse yourself. Like, don't have opinions, you learn, get plugged in, understand what you're getting into, understand your team, assess the talent that you have, see where gaps might be, and also just understand, does everybody there, do they get it? Do they want to be here, and can they do it? And if they can't, then you got to make changes. So yeah, I think it's assessing team, assessing situation, understanding the business, getting a really good look under the hood, understanding your numbers. So sitting with people in data, sitting with people in ops, accounting, to kind of really understand what you're playing with, getting into the field too. So if you're a CPG company, going to stores and talking to bud tenders and buyers about your product, and understanding, you can see where you're at. You can figure out, do I have a problem with my product? Is my positioning right? Are we, where are we not aligned? Just so you have a fuller, before you can really add value, you have to understand what you're doing. And if you come in and have an idea on day one, like, that's ego, So you try to just really suppress that as much as possible in the beginning.
Got it. And remove the glass jars.
Or just put the focus towards things that are the higher margin, But some of the product decisions that made, Well, I didn't go to this. Like, I didn't do this. I didn't start this till after I'd been there like well over a year, because the packaging wasn't really the problem. It was like the storytelling was the problem with Glass House, in my opinion. And so, it was really like the first goal with that was just let's humanize it. Let's humanize the company. Tell people it's you can't hate people that grow weed or are passionate about weed. So that was one of the first things there. With All's Well, it was like understanding that that was the first package I changed, but just the labeling, it's understanding like what you're getting into and where the opportunities are.
For me personally, this is a lot of information that I was not familiar with, so really do appreciate that and thank you. If you can share with us, where can people find you on social media?
I am LinkedIn. I think it's just Karchmer, Karchmer is my handle there. Josh Karchmer, or on Instagram, josh.karchmer. And or events in California, I'm around. Say hi.